Everyone, this is Neeraj. Welcome back to our Azure DevOps learning series. In the last session, we talked about the branching policies, how to create a new branch, how to set up a permissions, whether you want to be at a reviewer, mandatory reviewer, pull request, end-to-end traceability. We talked all onto the branching strategy. In today's session, we will talk onto the Azure repos setting. That is the place where you can set up that who is going to manage your repository, to whom you want to give up permissions, and what all default settings you want to be applied for all the repositories that got created in your project. So let's get started. As soon as you have login onto your Azure DevOps and onto your repo, you will see an option right there on the repository name perspective to manage your repository. You can click on this one and it will land you onto the project setting page. You can also come onto the repository settings to go on the very left bottom side, this project settings. Under the project settings, you can select the repository. It will also land you onto the same page. Now, as soon as you landed onto the repository settings, this is the place where you can see all of your Azure DevOps repository for that particular project. Now, there are few settings which you can do on at a project level, or there are few settings which you can do at a repository level. So let's learn on that one. Let's selected the option of settings. Now, as soon as you see here the settings, the first settings you can see here is related to the advanced security. These two are a paid plan, not applicable for the version or the credentials that I'm using right now. I'm using the free plan. But if you are in the organization and you want to add more security for your project, you can select the secret protection plan or code security plan. Secret protection plan allow you to store the secret, push protection, and alert if something goes wrong with your secret. Secondly, if you want to enable the code quality, set up an alert or any dependency alert, the code security plan will help you. However, other than this, if you want to change the default branch name whenever a new repository get created, by default it is main. But if you want to make a change to make it instead of main, you said, okay, I want my organization that every main branch should be with the name as master. You can change it right here so that every new repository will be created as a branch name as master. So let's see, we will see it out to be created out. There is no TFVC right now. It's all onto the Git perspective. So by default, it is now on the disable. We cannot make any change. The next one is to allow the user to manage permissions for their created branch, that whether they want to be change permissions for a respective branch or not, you can enable or disable that as per your requirement for a branching perspective. And the next one is create a pull request as a draft by default. What does that mean? It means that new pull request will auto get created as a draft for all the repository in the project. As soon as you started it up, a draft pull request get created. You can make a change as and when needed. Ideally, try to avoid this one because you are going to be create a pull request or the developer is creating it as per their own code changes to be figure it out. You don't want it to be created by default. Okay. Next one, on the settings perspective, there is a different policies. So if you can go to the policies similar to the branching policies, there are few things that you can do for the repository policies as well. First, you can see here, commit the author email validation. If you want to add a validation on your repository code push, you can add it up here. What does that mean? That means that as soon as you enable it, you have to be specify a pattern that I said, okay, star outlook. com. I want something to be created with this name. Okay, it should be ended up. So you can add the pattern here if you want the author emails to be validated. Okay, next one is the file path validation, where you can add a path if you want to be specify whether the block push is introducing from that perspective or not. Okay, you can see here it can start it always with the hash, or you can add as many path as you want with the star or as well. Next one is related to the case enforcement. Again, avoid the case sensitivity conflict by blocking the push that change the name and that create the problem later on. So you can set it up that particular policy, or you can choose the reserve name. You don't want that any particular name can be assigned. You can put it as a reserved name. Okay. Next one is related to the maximum path length. When a new repository or a branch get created, you can define the length of that particular path. You can make it bigger, you can make it smaller. It's all up to you. By default, it is giving as 248. Next one is the maximum file size, that you can block the push if the file size is going larger than what you have defined it up here. There is limitation always on the free tier or onto the other tier. This can be little different, but you can see here there are multiple options from where you can select it out. Okay, next one is related to the security, where this is the most important part for the repository, where you can define what permissions you want to be give to all the repositories. So here you can define the permission for individual groups. By default, there are few groups that has already been there, but you can create your own permissions group. We will learn in the upcoming sessions. And for each individual group, you can define the permission. So let's take one example. Take an example for the group which has been created as a DevOps learning series build service. What all different permissions you want to be assigned? Do you want to be assigned manage and dismiss alert? It is all based upon the advanced security if you have set it up based upon the plan. If not, you can leave it as it is. Bypass the policies when completing the pull request. If you want to allow this group to bypass the policies when completing the pull request, you can set it up. You can allow, you can deny, or you cannot set it. Then leave it as it is. It is not going to be put up any permission on this one, and you can set it up for an individual repositories. Next one is bypass the policies again when pushing the code. The previous one is when completing the pull request. For contributor, do you want to be allow him to set the like do the contribution, contribute to the pull request? Want to allow? Do you want to allow to create a repository for the members who is part of this group? Do you want them to give a permission to create a repository as well? Similarly, to create a tag, you can do it. Delete or disable the repository. I would say you do it denial. You cannot give this type of permission to everyone. So make sure whenever you are setting it up for an organization level, only a set of group people can delete or disable the repositories or edit the policies. The next one is force push, very important one, that do you want to allow someone to take or delete the branches in that particular repository or the tag or the history. Setting up these is pretty important so that no unauthorized person or a unauthorized group member can delete the branches for your repository. And similarly, the other permissions that you can set it up for the permissions read, remove others logs or not. That is how you can set it up organization level policies for the repositories. However, if I can quickly go back to the repository, you can set it up some more permission at an individual level. Take an example of this, my first repo. Open this one and you can see again the settings available. You can change and do the settings more at the individual repository level. You can set it up multiple other policies if you want. By default, you can see these are the option. You cannot change it. These are the inherited. However, whatever that was not set it up at the organization level, you can change those permissions. Similarly, onto the security, whatever be inherited, you can see those are inherited. However, if you want to make a change, even though after inherited you see like this is allowed, these are allowed and denied, you can change those permissions as well if you are the part of the member who can go and then change the security permissions here. Got it? That is how you can do a repository permissions and settings to be set it up for the organization level or for individual repository level. Thank you so much. On our upcoming sessions, we will learn more about the branches policies, what are the best practices for the branching policies, and more onto the pull request and correspondingly histories of each commit that has been done. Thank you so much.